Hey everyone, today we're going to be talking about Lord of the Flies, Chapter 2, and specifically some symbolism that happens in Chapter 2. So let's get started. After we read Chapter 1, I asked you guys to give me a prediction for a specific character relationship in the book and how it would move and develop throughout the story. So I took your results and I pulled them and made them into this cute little pie chart for us. And our strongest opinion is here in yellow at the bottom, which is that Ralph and Piggy's relationship is going to grow stronger throughout the book. Our second most popular opinion is in red, and that is that Ralph and Piggy's relationship will weaken throughout the book. So I thought it was interesting that our top two opinions are actually opposites. Some of you guys think that Ralph and Piggy are going to grow closer and stronger, and some of you think that the relationship is just going to keep getting farther apart and they're just going to go opposite ways. So we will see what happens as we continue to read, but I thought that was interesting. So we're going to start today with a quick review of Allegory. When you all read your background information on Lord of the Flies, you read that Allegory is a literary device which conveys meaning through symbols, actions, and even characters. Usually, an allegory includes a message or a second story that the author is trying to get across. So today, we're going to take a closer look at some of the symbols in Lord of the Flies and how they relate to the overall allegory of the story. All right. So symbolism, let's do a quick review. Symbolism is when a symbol or an object is used to represent an idea. And you all use symbols every day in your lives. You don't even think about it. So a couple examples just to get us in the mode of thinking that way. One thing I like to think about is colors, because colors have symbolism. So for example, the color red, normally we associate that with something negative. Stop, blood, anger, passion. It's normally something that alarms us. It's an alert, right? Whereas the color green is the opposite. It normally tells us to go, represents growth, money, right? Something positive. Another example of symbolism would be a dove or an olive branch. When we see that, we normally think of peace or something positive. And staying with the bird symbolism, an owl, when you hear that or see that, that normally represents knowledge, right? So those are just a couple examples, but like I said, you guys see symbolism in your everyday lives. You already use it a ton, so this is going to be a piece of cake. If we think about literary symbolism and we think back to Kill a Mockingbird, which we read earlier this year, I want you guys to think about the mockingbird. And we discussed this a little bit, but what did the mockingbird represent in To Kill a Mockingbird? And if you think back to our discussions, we talked about how the mockingbird symbolizes innocence and beauty, right? So it's these good things, and obviously that contributes to the whole story. And there were a couple different mockingbirds throughout the story, but they all represented these good things, innocence, beauty. So before we think about our symbols in Lord of the Flies, we're going to do a little bit of a recap to get us back into the story. So when we left off, we had Jack, Ralph, and Simon were at the top of the mountain. They had seen that, we're on a mountain. This is it. It's for us. And they were headed back to tell the rest of the troops that they had confirmed that we are on an island. There aren't any grown-ups. We shall have to look after ourselves, right? So they're having their first meeting, and Ralph is leading, and he's explaining to them the facts that we are on this island. Now we know we have to fend for ourselves. And they mentioned the fact that, we know there's fruit on the island, and we know now that there are pigs on the island, which leads Jack to have this reaction again to kind of prove his manliness and his power. Jack slammed his knife into a trunk and looked around challengingly. And one of the questions I asked you was, why does he do that? Why does he look around challengingly? It's not just that he slams his knife. He wants everyone to see him do it. So why would that be? And you had some really great answers, so I'm just going to list a couple of them here. He cares what people think of him. He wants to look powerful and in charge. He needs and wants the approval of others. He is ruthless, and this may be foreshadowing that he will challenge Ralph to be the leader. So some really good points there about Jack's attitude, and definitely the fact that he definitely wants power, but he also needs a confidence boost. He wants people to believe in him and see him as a leader, and that's why he's always checking up to see how people are reacting to him, right? So obviously we'll see more of what happens there. And the next thing the boys come to realize, and that's decided, is that, we're going to be living together and working together. We need to have rules. And they're very excited about the prospect of making their own rules. And Jack specifically, of course, is excited about punishing people that won't follow the rules. But the rules lead us to our first symbol, which is the conch shell. Right, so we are back with the conch, which obviously we heard about earlier in chapter 1. It's this beautiful large shell that can be used to summon everyone, and it's very valuable. So the conch, Ralph decides this is going to be kind of our talking stick. Whoever has the conch, they get to talk. I'll give the conch to the next person to speak. He can hold it while he's speaking, and he won't be interrupted except by me. So Ralph says, whoever has it, they have the power to speak. I'm still the leader, so I can interrupt, but everyone else is supposed to listen to them. And so the shell, the conch, it represents the boys' connection to the real world and to civilization, right? Because through the conch and through the rules that Jack has made, it gives them an order, right? It has a rule to follow. Whoever has the conch, they have power. They're allowed to talk, right? And so it's similar to something, and Ralph even mentions that it's similar to raising your hand in class, right? And that's something that we do to keep a sense of order, right? And civilization. So the shell represents their connection to the real world and how they're keeping their civilization on the island. All right, so that is the conch. Continuing with our recap. So next we have one of the younger boys who asks about the beastie. He says it's a snake-like thing and he's seen it at night. Is it going to come back? And this leads to a lot of discussion among the boys and some yelling, a lot of questions. And Ralph is very adamant that there's not a beast. There's not a beast. And he says it 4 or 5 times, to the whole crowd as they continue to talk back and question. And this is really where we see one of the first signs of kind of discord on the island, is when Ralph is trying to get everyone to listen to him and they just continue to talk about the beastie. Ralph was annoyed and for the moment defeated. He felt himself facing something ungraspable. But there isn't a beast. Something he had not known was there rose in him and compelled him to make the point, loudly and again. But I tell you, there isn't a beast. So this is Ralph's first kind of outburst towards everyone, and he feels a little unhinged. He feels like he's not in control, and he starts to yell. And as soon as he yells that, everyone is quiet again. But it takes him a couple times, to get everyone's attention. So it's our first kind of taste of things kind of falling apart and not coming together as smoothly as Ralph would hope. Next, Ralph suggests making the fire, and here we get our second taste of discord. A fire! Make a fire! At once, half the boys were on their feet. Jack clamored among them, the conch forgotten. Ralph was on his feet too, shouting for quiet, but no one heard him. So with the suggestion of a fire, which is a great idea, great job, Ralph, the boys are all just up in arms, and Jack leads them just away, right? They go to start making the fire, and they just leave the meeting, and Ralph is very upset. He keeps asking them to be quiet, but of course, no one hears him. And we see our first taste of the boys kind of forgetting about civilization as they run away, and it says the conch is forgotten. So the conch that represents, the order that they have and the rules. In this case, this is the first time that it's forgotten, and the boys just run off and do their own thing. So this leads us to our second symbol, which is Piggy's glasses. I'll put mine on. I think they look good. So Piggy's glasses. Obviously, right, when the boys get up there, they use the glasses to start the fire. So Piggy's glasses and Piggy himself represent intelligence, reason, and science. All right, he is the smartest boy on the island. He is the one that provides all the logical questions and concerns to the group. He is the one that's closest to the real world and to civilization. And so when they use his glasses, they too are using reason, right? So that connection, using the glasses to light the fire, is this connection to civilization, right? They achieve something using Piggy and his glasses. Throughout the story, the boys are going to stop listening to Piggy, I mean, they already don't, but even more so, they're going to back away from Piggy and move away from civilization the longer that they are on the island. But they do use his intelligence, in this case, to light the fire. So we're going to talk a little bit about Piggy's relationship with the boys, because this comes up whenever they do use his glasses to light the fire. So it's Jack's idea, and they take the glasses from Piggy without telling him anything, and he's very frantic because he can't see and he has no idea where his glasses are, which is understandable. If you have glasses and you take them off, you know that it's a struggle. So Piggy is definitely the smartest boy on the island, but the others still disrespect him and treat him cruelly. And maybe it's because of the way he looks, the way he acts, we don't really know. But either way, it's not great. But despite that, Piggy continues to try to speak his mind. And he is someone that holds very strong to the rule of the conch. And we see that throughout the book, that he is one that holds on to this. He'll say throughout the book, I have the conch, I can speak. And the boys, of course, as we will see, step away from civilization and away from the rule of the conch. The other thing about Piggy is that some of you said, I wish Piggy had been made the leader. And I think it's interesting for us to think about that because Piggy never makes any sort of indication that he wants to be leader. We mentioned last chapter about how when the vote does happen, Piggy votes for Ralph, but he does so grudgingly. He does so kind of like, I guess I'll vote for you. And there are a couple of reasons that you guys mentioned as to why he might do that. But the thing that I think is interesting is he never says, like, I want to be leader. And he never mentions that throughout the entire book. Rather, he totally supports having Ralph as leader. And he mentions this to the kids. And he says, Ralph's the leader, we need to listen to him. So at this point, we are up. The fire has been made. And Piggy gets up there. They've lit the fire with his glasses. And he's very angry. He keeps saying, just like kids. And he says to the boys, you said you wanted a small fire and you built a pile like a hayrick. If I say anything, you say shut up. But if Jack or Maurice or Simon, he paused. Then he laughed so strangely that they were hushed. And he laughs because he's seen that they went ahead and broke the rules and made their fire the way that they thought they should without thinking it through. And now, if you remember, there's a massive fire going on. And the book says that 1/4 mile of the island is just on fire. So all these trees, right? So the boys kind of realize at that point, and Ralph specifically realizes the power of that moment and of that fire. So the signal fire is another symbol. The signal fire obviously burns in the hopes that the boys will be rescued. So it is another connection to civilization. As long as the fire burns, someone may see them and may come and rescue them from the island. Throughout the book, I want you to pay attention to which characters focus on maintaining this fire, because that is something that comes up and will also indicate who wants to be rescued and who has kind of given up that thought and just is focusing on what's going on the island. So once the fire goes out, the idea of going back to civilization also dies. So something to keep in mind. The end of chapter 2, obviously there's this large fire. The boys are all watching it. And this is kind of where everything comes apart. Piggy continues to try to talk and he's like, I've got the conch, Ralph. And Ralph kind of backs him up, but not really. At the same time, Piggy is constantly backing Ralph up. He says, you said Ralph was chief and you didn't give him time to think. And he's angry at the boys. And that is when we make the realization that, and Piggy says, we don't even know how many of us there are. And Ralph says, didn't you count them? Piggy's like, how could I? Right? And at that moment, we realize that we are missing someone. That little one, gasped Piggy. Him with the mark on his face. I don't see him. Where is he now? The crowd was as silent as death. So they know that at least one boy is missing. The boys look at each other fearfully. unbelieving. And so obviously we don't get the details, but it's assumed that this boy is now dead due to the large fire that broke out. So end of chapter 2, it gets kind of serious pretty fast. And we'll continue to see how the boys react and struggle with each other and make decisions about what's best for them or what's not best for them throughout the book. But I mean, it's a pretty big deal, and the book doesn't go into too much detail about it. We just know that the boy is gone and he never comes back. But it's really their first step into this savagery. And it's not even an intentional step. It's a step that happens because they haven't thought things through. But nonetheless, it is a step into savagery. So that's the end of chapter 2. For homework, what I would like you to do is go onto Google Classroom, and you are going to think about either Jack or the Beastie or something else or someone else, if you have your own idea, and what they might symbolize in the book, they or it. Okay? So you're going to go and Google Classroom and record your answer, and tomorrow we are going to get started with chapter 3. And we're going to try our first class discussion, which is going to be awesome. I'm very excited. You should be too. Okay. I miss you guys. Bye.